Welcome, science friends, to Prezygotic Barriers. So, how and why do new species originate? New species are formed by a series of evolutionary processes which cause something called reproductive isolation. So, certain species are isolated from other species in the sense of reproduction, making more babies. There are two main categories of isolating mechanisms. One of them is called prezygotic barriers. These are places of isolation that happen before a zygote can occur. Pre means before, zygotic has to do with zygotes. A zygote is a fertilized egg, so a sperm has to fertilize an egg. The other form is called a post-zygotic barrier. These are generally related to the fertility and viability portion of those isolating mechanisms. So a zygote is formed between two different species, but that offspring is either not fertile, so it cannot make more babies on its own, or it is not viable or not strong enough to survive to the reproductive stage of its life. This video is going to focus on prezygotic barriers. There are 6 main prezygotic barriers: geographic isolation, ecological isolation, temporal isolation, behavioral isolation, mechanical isolation, and gametic isolation. So to start, geographic isolation. This is when new species happen in different areas, and it has that physical barrier. So this would be an allopatric speciation. If there's some sort of physical thing that gets in the way due to the geography, we will see that prezygotic isolation. A great example here are these little ground squirrels found in the Grand Canyon. Some are on one half of the canyon, the other on the opposite side of the canyon. And due to that giant canyon, that ravine and the river running through it, these squirrels do not mate with each other. They are isolated from each other. There's something in the way, in this case a canyon, that prevents them from breeding with each other. Again, this is an allopatric speciation mechanism, something geographic, something's in the way. A canyon, a mountain, an ocean, a river, whatever it is. The second one is called ecological isolation. So these species live in the same region, but occupy different habitats. So due to that difference in habitat of where they live, they don't often encounter each other. So this example, I have some snakes. We have 2 different garter snakes. They look very similar, they have a common ancestor, but their habitats are different. One is aquatic and it lives in the water. The other is terrestrial and it lives on land. And due to this difference in their habitats, they don't often come into each other very often, so they don't mate with each other. Another example are lions and tigers. Lions and tigers can mate with each other and produce viable offspring, but in nature, they live in very different habitats. Lions live in grasslands in Africa, and tigers live in rainforests or jungly areas, often in India or any of those sort of jungly habitats. And due to this difference in habitats, they don't come across each other and therefore do not interbreed. The ecological portion of where they live prevents these different organisms from breeding with each other. Number 3 is temporal isolation. Temporal just means time. So these species breed during different times. It could be different times of day, night versus light time, different seasons, fall versus spring, different years. If I'm going to hibernate for 3 years and you're going to hibernate for 5 years, we're never going to come across each other. And because of that offset in when they breed, they do not mix their gametes, they do not make offspring together. So here in this example, we have skunks. One is an eastern spotted skunk and one is a western spotted skunk. And their ranges even overlap. So their habitats do overlap each other, but one is ready to mate in winter and one is ready to mate in summer. So they don't want to mate at the same time and therefore they can't make babies together. They are isolated from each other due to that time aspect. Next is number 4, behavioral isolation. So many different animals have unique behaviors and rituals. Most common are those mating rituals. Depending on the species, they might have different dances or different sounds and calls to identify their own species. It can also attract mates of their same species that recognize those behaviors and rituals. So here we have an example of blue-footed boobies. Boobies are a bird. They're very funny. They do these little dance to signal that they want to mate. And if you don't dance the right way, because you're a different type of bird, I'm not going to be interested and I'm not going to want to mate with you. So it's just another example of the behavioral aspect of whether these different species want to mate with each other. Another example besides like a dance is songs and sounds. Fireflies, the way that they blink their butts is indicative of different species of fireflies. If I'm a fast butt blinker, I only want to mate with fast butt blinkers. If I'm a slow butt blinker, I want to mate with the slow butt blinkers. And that difference in speed differentiates who I'm going to mate with, because I want to mate with the ones with the right butt blinks. The last example of sound here is an insect called a lacewing. And again, they look very similar to all other lacewings, but depending on the sound that they make, some are very high-pitched and frequent chirps, some are lower-pitched and less frequent pitches. So based on the sound that this insect is making, it's going to attract only the mates of its own species. Number 5 is mechanical isolation. Physical differences in the way these organisms are built can prevent mating with other species. So even closely related species of things like plants, the flowers have very different appearances that attract different pollinators. So for example, here we have this red colored flower. It's very differently shaped from the pink flower on the bottom. Even though these species of flowers are closely related, because they're shaped differently, they're going to get different pollinators. So a hummingbird will pollinate that red one because it has a very small hole, perfect for that long beak. But that pink flower on the bottom is going to encourage other types of pollinators, perhaps not hummingbirds, but something more like a bee, where it can crawl inside of the flower because it has a larger opening. So because it's attracting different pollinators, those pollinators are going to stick to the kinds of flowers that they can take advantage of. Another example of mechanical isolation is the morphological difference in sex organs. If my thing doesn't fit with your thing, we can't mate. There's a physical difference. If it can't fit, it's not going to work. It's hard to imagine for us as humans, but when it comes to something like insects, this example of a damselfly, it's very similar to a dragonfly. Depending on the species, there are many different types of damselfly penises that only fit in the same species of female. So again, mechanical isolation, if it doesn't fit, it's not going to work, you can't breed. The last mode of prezygotic barriers, number 6, is called gametic isolation. Sperm of one species may not be able to fertilize the eggs of another species. Sometimes it's a chemical barrier where there's a layer of mucus where the sperm cannot penetrate the egg. It's a lot like an enzyme, perhaps the lock and key doesn't work. It could also be a different chemical incompatibility where the sperm can't survive in the female reproductive tract between species. So for example, if I'm going to go swim in the ocean is full of random types of fish and invertebrate sperm. I'm not going to go swim in the ocean and come back and get pregnant by a sea urchin or a sea slug or a sea star or fish. It's just not going to happen. I'm not going to have a weird fish baby because the gametes, my eggs and whatever sperm is floating around in the ocean, they don't mix. They're not compatible. The sperm in the ocean is not going to be able to successfully fertilize my eggs as a female human. So again, gametes are important. They have to be able to fertilize. If it can't fertilize, can't make babies. Those were prezygotic barriers. I hope it helped.